Hi, it's Glenn McQueenie, and welcome again, and welcome back to my 25-minute Success Series podcast. My special guest today is Peter C. from Keller Williams Energy in beautiful Oshawa, Ontario. So, Peter, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Glenn. I'm just loving this weather.
Yeah. Well, thanks a million just for taking some time out to join me on this call. And just, I guess, before we get started, why don't you just, for the people listening, just tell them a little bit about you. Maybe how long you've been in the business, and a little bit about where your business is now, and then we can talk about where you want it to go.
Okay. I'm almost 7 years in the business. I started in March of 2011, so just moving along on a better pace now than I had been in the past. Last year I had a very good year. I was in a bit of a roller coaster there the first few years in business, as you probably, it's a common story. This year I'm on track to do better than last year. And last month, August, I had a great month. Did 3 deals. I've got 4 listings at the moment. Things are kind of moving in the right direction, but there's some things that are missing.
Okay. So where do you get most of your business from now? Like, where is most of your lead generation?
I'm a door knocker, so I get most of my business from that and from being present in the community. I meet a lot of people. I work out of a coffee shop. I'm very social that way, so I see a lot of people out and about. And they're finally at that point now that they trust me, and I'm getting business coming to me from that kind of approach as well. But I would say most of the business I've done over the years has been directly from door knocking.
Okay. So last, say, 12 months, what percentage would you say door knocking compared to maybe coffee shop or sphere or other leads, would you say?
I would say 70%.
Awesome. Okay, and then what's the average price in the neighborhood that you're working in, that you're knocking the doors?
I work mostly Pickering. I grew up here in Pickering. I've been in Pickering since '66, so I try and stick to what I know. And that's kind of part of my script when I talk to people. It's that, there's nobody that really knows it better than I do because I've lived here for so long, and I still know a lot of people in the area. So I use that to my advantage. And I would say the average price Pickering right now is about $800,000, and I'm working all segments, so from, townhomes to condos to, sort of the upper end as well. So, I mean, the upper end in Pickering now is over $2 million. The lower end in Pickering is probably around 500. I just sold one last month for 490, so that was a single detached in Bay Ridges.
Well, things sure have changed in Pickering. And for those listening, Pickering's just like on the east side of Toronto. It's part of Durham region. And I used to work at Remax First in Pickering, and I started there 21 years ago. I started in Toronto earlier, but used to work at Pickering, and then, of course, the subsequent Ajax would be Oshawa, and of course the Scarborough markets. And I think my average price at that time was about $149,000. So I'm glad things are going well for you out in Pickering.
Yeah, they certainly have changed, that's for sure.
They're going a lot better. Yeah. Crazy. So, who is your perfect dream come true client? Like, if I was building a model and I knew behind these next doors tomorrow you were going to meet someone at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 5 o'clock, who is the perfect dream come true client for you? Like, where do they live? How much is their house worth? And what's their problem, or where are they going to move to?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I have a lot of different types of clients that I do business with. I do business with builders. I do business with investors. I do business with homeowners. So the homeowner that's an ideal client for me is somebody that knows exactly what they want if they're a buyer, or they're realistic, obviously, in their selling price if they're a seller. And I'm usually pretty good at, illustrating or making a case for a price in the neighborhood, and I even offer to take clients to look at inventory that's comparable, so that they get a really good picture of what their house is worth. And but yeah, I do like working with builders, and done a lot of business with unlisted properties that I've found door knocking, for people that are looking to buy.
Okay. So we've got like that's three separate niches, right? And they're all fantastic. I think for the sake of this call, because I'm going to have 20 minutes or so, if there was one that you really wanted to, I guess, go really deep on, where because you love it more than the others, or it's faster, easier, simpler, more lucrative.
The short answer to that is sellers. I'd like to have more sellers, more listings.
Okay. And what's the perfect listing you like to sell in Pickering? Like, what's the price of that perfect home that if you list it, shows well, staged pretty well, it's right in the market, and it'll clear fairly quickly for you?
I'd have to say somewhere in the 650 to 750 range.
Okay. And where do those people move to after you sell that 650, 750 home?
They're either moving up or they're moving out.
Okay.
So it's moving to a bigger property. That's probably the general rule of thumb, or they're getting out of the area.
Yeah, and for those people listening don't really know, I mean, it's fairly commonplace that it's a fairly maturing marketplace in Whitby, and a lot of people are downsizing their homes. They bought in the 80s, a lot of the 70s and 80s. They've raised their kids now. They're in their 60s, mid 60s. They're looking to go to like the Peterboroughs, right, Peter, and like Lindsay, and
that's right.
moving out. Yeah, and they're usually cottages, and they're usually cashing out and usually buying at about the same price or a little bit cheaper.
Right.
And then the other market is the people who are moving up. And then what price range do they move up to?
If they're selling in that price range, they're probably going up to, sort of the $1 million range, or, 1.2. I've got several buyers right now I'm working with that have the home that they're looking to upsize, and, they want the 3-car garage, and they want, some of that sort of stuff. So it's, yeah.
Okay, so if you sell their house for, let's say, an average price of $7 million, and they buy for $1 million, can we just use $1 million or 1.2? What would be more accurate?
Probably somewhere in between. 1.1 would probably be more accurate. Yeah.
Okay, let's use 1.1 then, and so that's 1.8 million in real estate volume that you'd sell, and your commission on that be, sometimes, well, what would be your average on that? 40,000, 45,000?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And how many of those type of people would you need to do in the next 12 months in order for you to have your, hit all your goals and have your best year ever?
Not very many.
Right. That's the thing. And this is what most people don't understand is like the richest truly are in the niches, that if you just get so good in one market and you go really deep on it, and I'm not saying like blow up the rest of your business, because it sounds like you got a really good business going, you got lots of income streams, but it's incredible the focus that if you even started going, okay, just 10 or 15% of the week, I'm going to just be focused on the 700 seller that moves to 1.1. Because I know every time I do one of those, that's like 40 or 45,000, and you need to do X in order to hit your goals and your stretch goals, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's putting those two elements together that's been a challenge for me, Glenn. I've never, I'm always getting one side of it. I miss the other side. They've already bought somewhere, they're moved out, they've already bought, and then they get to sell their place in Pickering. Or, so I missed out on the referral possibility. So for me, it's like I touch a lot of business, and I've watched it go right by me over my career.
Welcome to real estate.
Exactly.
Haven't we all? Well, here's the great thing. I mean, here's what's changed. Let me just tell you, I think what's changed in maybe the 28 years that I've been in the business. One is we controlled all the information, and it wasn't automated. And you've probably heard the stories of, we used to cut out the listings that came every day, put them in little books, and then we finally got these MLS books. So we could control the purchase because we had the property, and it wasn't easy for them to jump on MLS and just go find that home. Right. And because we did that, we could get 2 transactions almost all the time because they would reach out to us when they were buying first, and then as a byproduct, we would come back and sell their house. And that was the
Right.
traditional way that real estate was done. When I started, after the shifted market, it was the opposite. You had to sell the house first and hope that they'd be able to have at least some equity left because the market had crashed. And a lot of times it was bank. We had to get the approval of the bank to sell it, or I've sold many homes in Pickering where the seller had to credit the bank 10 or 20,000 on closing in order to buy down the interest rate from 15% to 9% just in order for the buyer to qualify to buy their house.
Right.
That's what we used to do on almost every home, right? So the game's changed and we got to change with the game. And I think the way that you're going to succeed in this is, what if we started instead of door knocking to get their listing, what if we started marketing to where they're going first, and then we just started getting their listing as a natural byproduct of finding the purchase? Does that make sense?
It's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, you're playing one game ahead of them. You're just trying to go, oh, I know you're out there looking, but I want you to put up your hand when you're looking so that I can help you find that, and then by in doing so, I'll get the backup. And this is why you're seeing less domination by, I guess, farming agents or neighborhood farming, because what ends up happening in neighborhoods is they get one-offed all the time. Like, you'll see this listing come up on a door that you knocked a couple weeks ago by some agent
Right.
you've never heard of because they
Right.
represented them on the purchase. Does that happen to you?
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yep.
Yeah, right.
You see a lot of out-of-town agents taking listings in town, so it's like you scratch your head about that sometimes. I think, why didn't they go with an expert in Pickering when they had the opportunity?
Right.
You know.
So what if you created the place where people who were thinking about moving up would go to so that they could be educated and motivated, and then they would, as a natural byproduct of you adding that value, they would put up their hand and go, hey, I think I need your help on this.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's my brother's an agent and he works Coburg, and that's pretty much what he does.
Right.
He gets a lot of internet leads for people that are looking to buy Coburg.
Right.
His email address or his website is C Coburg, and people are calling him to buy there, and then he gets their seller referral in whatever town they're selling coming from, right? So
That's it.
kind of interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe we should just call your brother right now and see what he's doing. Just kidding. um,
Yeah.
so, a great thing to do would be to focus on one neighborhood and almost do a bit of a study first. So I would print off everything that's sold in. So what part of Pickering are you, is the perfect 650, 750 seller sitting in?
Probably West Shore, Bay Ridges, Rosebank.
Okay, so that's the south part of Pickering on Lake Ontario, and it's mostly bungalows and semi-bungalows. Right.
The old E12.
That's right. Okay, so what would be really interesting to do would be to print off the sales between 650 and 750 over the last, like, just this year, and then so now we know who's sold, and then there is obviously some technologies that you can use in order to find out where they've moved to, right?
Right.
So, and I think that research would give you the pattern flow, and they would say, oh, 30% are going Coburgish, or 20% are going to Peterborough, or it could be, you know what, like, where would they typically, if they're staying in Pickering and moving up, where are they going to go to for that 1.2 million? Where do they go?
Well, if somebody's moving from, say, West Shore or Bay Ridges, and if they're going to spend 1.2 million to move it, they're probably Rosebank, or they're moving to High Bush, which is sort of west end of Pickering.
Yeah, so they're coming out of the suburb into more of a mature forested ravine kind of setting, right? Is that accurate? And sometimes it's newer homes, right?
Yeah, there's some newer infill homes. There's not a lot of new development in Pickering. They're redoing the north end of Pickering, and there's going to be a lot of new development up there. But the south end, it's all infill or older homes.
Right. So what if we started offering a free list of the top 10 best homes between $1 million and $1.3 million in Pickering, free, no cost, no obligation, and created almost like a Facebook page called the Pickering Move Up. We'd have to
Something
brainstorm a
like
bit
that.
on. Yeah, but you got to go to where the fish are going to, right? So if someone's going to be Googling Pickering homes $1 million, that Google will go, oh, Facebook's got good relevant content. It'll shove it back to you. Or you could also do Google SEO, just pay per click. It's really easy. That when anybody's entering that it could get directed over towards you are. And if you started positioning yourself as the expert on, your pick of the week. Here's my pick of the week. It's this one's 1.2 million, and it's here, and it's got this, and it's got that. And then you start creating almost like a membership community around it, where
Sure.
the people who want the pick of the week, you start sending them the pick of the week. And at
Right.
first, they're just going to be, silently watching. But then you could start, giving them really great information, like the best. Here's my picks for the best streets to move up. Here's here's the $1 million home mistake most people make in Pickering and how to avoid it. Do you see where I'm coming with this? Like you're really trying to almost become the BuzzFeed. Do you know what BuzzFeed is? Like
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like they got these compelling headlines, and then you just get suckered into clicking on them all the time.
Yeah.
But so you have to position yourself as the person who represents where they want to go, and
Right.
by default, then you get um, where they're going to come from. And
Yeah,
every
that makes sense.
time, yeah, and every time you're knocking on the door, when someone go, hey, how's the market? Instead of you saying, oh, it's great, it's really busy, our sales are up 9.2% or 16 or whatever everyone else talks about, you could say this. You could say, it's great. I just helped one of your neighbors who had lived here for quite a few years buy their dream home over on Rosebank. And
Yeah.
it was such an interesting situation because people love stories, right, Peter? And you can tell
Sure.
by the coffee shop, like it's the stories that people love, winning formula stories they call them. Where you go, and they were able to buy this house, and everyone thought it was going to go in multiples, and it didn't, and they were able to get it for cheaper than they thought they were able to do. But here's the better thing: when it came to selling their place, we got multiple offers, and they got 100 over ask. So they were able to move up to their dream home for less than they thought. And you know what? They're so happy. Like that extra 100, they're going to take to go on vacation or buy a timeshare in Florida. Does that make sense?
For sure. Mm-hmm.
Questions
Yeah.
about like, do
So,
you think that would work?
well, yeah, it sounds. It's another story to talk about for sure. I mean, I've gone with the same stories all the time. Usually, I work around a listing that I have, or even something that somebody else in our office has, or even if I don't have anything, or nobody in my office has anything, I just talk about what's available in the neighborhood and door knocking, right?
Right.
And that's a different story to talk about for sure.
Yeah, and then what you could do is you hand them the list at the door of,
Right.
Peter's top picks for Pickering homes between a million and two, and then another sheet you could have Pickering. Like most people skip Ajax now, right? So Peter's top picks for Whitby, you know,
Yeah.
um, Peter's top picks for, um, you know, uh, Deer Creek, which is a golf course community for those people listening, just north.
Yeah.
You could almost have, or your offer to them could be, well, why don't I just send you the top 10 best, best homes in the neighborhood?
Right.
And then they'll go, oh, will you do that? Oh, yeah, no cost, no obligation. I'd love to help you. And honestly, like, seriously, I'll just send you them. And if you want to go out, if you want, we can go tour them. And, like, you can't buy that day. We're just going to go out and take a look. And that's really the service I provide as an agent. And that's what makes me different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good idea. Absolutely.
And I'm just trying to think of, could you create a guide? Like, Google has got this stuff. Like, it's all over the place. Everyone just kind of, but in Google, you could almost have a guide, a home seller's guide, or at the door, almost put together a mini guide that just said, um, the 10, the 10 things need to know when moving up. Or I don't know what the wording is right now because we're short on
Yeah.
time here, but like there's got to be like the whole, I guess what I'm really talking about is we have to come from contribution first and also positioning where we position ourselves as the expert in that niche and that we know so much about it that
Right.
they would like it would be ridiculous for them to even use anyone else, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of where I've been trying to figure out that, formula, what to do to be able to, say something more than just the fact that I've lived here for so long and I know it as good as anybody. Yeah, you've got to have a little bit more substance behind it for sure.
Yeah, and I think Dean Jackson, who I think is one of the best real estate marketers around, he came out with this. I'm sure you can Google it because I think it's a free download. But it's this booklet called the Room by Room Analysis for your home. So your second offer at the door can be, oh, one of the other service I provide is a room by room analysis. And that's really where we just go through every room and we just tell you what needs to get done in order for you to get the most money for your home. Because we often find that people will go and find like their dream home and it like they weren't even looking and they went into an open house and by Sunday night they bought a new home and they got to close in 30 days and they're in a panic.
Right.
And I don't want that to happen to you. What I want to do is go through your house, make sure it's all ready to go so that whenever, if it's 6 months, a year or 2 or 5 years from now, that you're not going to be caught in that stressful situation.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like I'm just because what's neat about it is it's just a completely different approach. Like, imagine I'm knocking the door right after you or I'm right before you, right?
Right.
And you're very skilled at what you do. You're probably better at door knocking than I am. But if I show up with value and offers all the time and really saying I care about you first and I wouldn't expect you to do any business with me unless I could give you a lot of value up front, then that's where you start creating what we call raving fan communities, right?
Yeah. And it is funny. I mean, you do that scenario actually happens. I see people door knocking in the neighborhood, that I'm knocking, and I know that guy. He's an agent, and I know who he is, and he's worked in the same neighborhood as me. I've seen him actually turn around and leave.
He's like, oh no, Peter's better. I'm leaving. I'm going to another street.
I've actually seen that. But and then there's you get the Jehovah's Witnesses too, and they're out there, and you want to get ahead of them. It's okay, I'm a real estate agent.
You got to stay one step ahead of those Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
Well, I think those couple things. I think it might change your game a little bit, right? And I mean, I know we only got 25 minutes on this call, but it's one of those things that if you just go deep and but you almost reverse engineer it. Like the way you have to approach this is just go pretend that you're that client sitting in West Shore neighborhood thinking about moving and what's their biggest fear and what are their greatest aspirations. And their biggest fear is, the very common questions we get: should I sell my house first before buying? What if I buy and I can't sell my place? Is now a good time to buy? Are interest rates going to go up? What if the market collapses and I buy this big house? Like all the stuff that we hear all the time.
Well, of course, a few months ago, we could have said that, it's always, you want to buy first before you sell, and now it's the opposite. Now you definitely want to sell before you buy,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the beautiful thing is, even as these markets shift, is like, people have to move, right? People get married, people get divorced, people are born, people die. There's always this beautiful pattern. But I think the next extension of this business for you would be once you master this move up, the 650 or the 700 sell to the 1.1 buy, there's also the first time buyer that you can start bringing into your stream now. So, where are they sitting right now? What's their biggest fear? Are they renting or are they in a townhouse right now in Scarborough? And they want to start moving in here. So I think this is a completely scalable business. And if you nailed it right, you could duplicate this and you could hire your next person in Whitby to do the exact same thing, and the next person in Oshawa, and you could have one doing the south side and the north side. And it would really be I think it would be really exciting to try to see how quickly you could scale because you're only presenting yourself to that target market as that you're the only person who really knows and understands really what they're going through, and you're providing this unique solution to their selfish problem.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, any questions just before? Well, why don't we give you like a 90-day sprint on this, right? So you just we're almost over time, but what I would do in the next 90 days is number one, because I think if you break your sprint down right now in like instead of annual goals, just break it out to 90-day goals,
Sure.
and just did 4 or 5 things that would push this business forward, I would probably suggest you do number one is go and find out where the migration patterns are. So when
Right.
someone's selling here, where do most of them go? Because we want to go to most of the market, right?
Right.
And number two is I would become the expert on the move up home right now. And I would
Mm-hmm.
probably get a Facebook page and start marketing your pick of the week back to those people who are living there.
Right.
Number three, I would create a free list offer for the top 10 homes in that neighborhood, or if they want to come onto your subscription list, which is no hassle and obligation, they can, get off your list at any time. That you'll never call them until they call you first. Like you can make it, can really lower the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Number four, I would start creating multiple lists just so you have like, okay, top 10 in Ajax, top 10 in Whitby or Oshawa, because that's what they really, really want. And number five, I think, is if you Google Dean Jackson's room by room review, he's like a genius in real estate. And I think I'm almost sure it's a free download. If not, buy it. I don't think it's that much money, but get that booklet that you can start handing out to the door and just offering, because this is the way that you get them before they actually buy, which is what you really want.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
Any questions? Or are we good?
No, that's great. That was awesome. Thanks, Glenn.
Oh,
Really
my
appreciate
pleasure. Well, thank you so much, Peter. Thanks for joining me on this podcast. Okay, take care. All the
Okay.
best. Okay,
Have a great
bye.
day. Bye.
Yep, thanks. Bye.